What's going on, everybody? So I wanted to do a grocery haul video since I'm in prep now. So why not share what I get when it comes down to keeping my macros where they should be versus when I was building and I got to eat a lot more food. So like I said in my previous videos, I'm at 225 gram carb, 300 gram protein, and 100 grams of fat. So oddly enough, I'm still I'm not having as much hunger from the previous week. I think just my timing of meals had to be a little bit adjusted, seeing how I have a new job now, my schedule's different. So it's just about planning ahead for me. I do follow a flexible approach. As you can see, it's not just your typical grocery haul that you would find somebody that's in eating more clean foods or whole foods. I have a variety for right now, but don't get it twisted. As my foods and my macros get lower, I'm definitely going to be a little bit more geared towards having a lot more volume versus, hey, I'm going to have something else that doesn't really fill me up. So I want to start off, since I am getting about 300 grams of protein, so it's very important for me to kind of keep it really basic, especially when I'm prepping for my foods. So one of the things that's a staple, so I got my Insernios chicken sausage or ground chicken. So the macros are relatively really good. If I can focus, it's 5 grams of fat, 0 grams of carbs, and 23 grams of protein per serving, which is 4 ounces. So these are a staple. These are really good. And they aren't as expensive. And then, of course, I got my 96.4 ground beef. So although my fats are relatively high at 100 grams, which is really abnormal for me, I still am so used to having, try to get my fats from coconut oil and other things. So, and almonds. So it's kind of a new thing for me to have this much fat. And then today, I got me some beef choice strip boneless. So this has a little bit more fat in it, so it's a good way to get my fats in. Plus I really like red meat when it comes down to my protein choices. And then I got some ham. So you may not know this, but ham is actually relatively good when it comes down to macros. Growing up, I always thought ham was going to be highly saturated fat, but it only has 2 grams of fat and about 2 grams of carb and 11 grams of protein. So depending on how it was cooked and how it's prepared, usually the carbs might be a little higher depending on how they cure it, and how they pack it. So that's just something that I picked up. And then of course I got some reduced fat Sargento Kobe back cheese. And that's the macros for a slice. So that's not too bad, specifically just because my fats are still high. One other thing, when you're dieting, you kind of have to go with fake diet bread. So we got Sara Lee Delightful 45, so 2 slices is really good when it comes down to being macro friendly. So 18 grams of carb for 2 slices, 6 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, and 5 grams of fiber. So that's relatively good. So I usually make some French toast with that. I'm probably going to make some baked French toast as well. That's just really good, especially a lot more volume when you do it that way. And then got some dill pickles. You can't go wrong with dill pickles. Get some sodium in that as well. And then I got my grilled and ready chicken strips, chicken breast strips, just because honestly, this just makes life so much easier when it comes down to prep. And I put this on my salads, but the macros are relatively good. I mean, nothing's really added to it. So when you look at that, so I usually get 2 packages a week just because I go through those really quick. Then of course you got my strawberries, a lot more volume when it comes down to macros. And then of course I got my spinach, I got some tomatoes. And then we get to the fun stuff a little bit. So I got some Smart Food Delight. I call these all diet popcorns. But honestly, you get Smart Food, the Delights, the macros are a lot better, or a little bit better than your Simple Truth Organic. So the fats are a little bit lower and the carbs are about the same. So it really depends on what you're fancying, because it's kind of a trade-off when it comes down to carbs and fats. Where's your macros lie for the day, so you can have that. Honestly, 28 grams weighed out is relatively a good amount of popcorn. So volume. So I just picked this up because when you look at the macros for bean chips or black bean chips, it's actually it's better than getting like Tostitos. So I mainly got it just because the plain flavor, because it's only 15 grams of carbs. Usually with Tostitos, it's like 18 or 19 grams of carb, and then you still got some good fiber in there, 5 grams. So I'm definitely gonna make some nachos with that, or possibly just have some pico de gallo with that. So it's just a nice little treat. For me personally, I do like the salties versus the sweets, or the savories versus the sweets. But of course, I had to try this out when it came down to it. I always try like Arctic Zero, I try like Skinny Cows, I try slow churn ice cream, but I wanted to try something a little different, something a little fruity. So the macros aren't bad on these at all, so we'll see if those taste good or not. And then of course I got my Sour Patch Kids. I usually use my Sour Patch Kids when I go to the gym, just something that's quick and easy for me as far as an energy source, intra-workout. I just picked this up, dressing, so my macros are still relatively good, so when it comes down to it, it's actually not that bad when it comes down to macros. I usually use just half a serving anyway, so 7 grams of fat and 1 gram of carb, so when it comes down to this dressing. So, and then of course I got my egg whites. Those are relatively easy, self-explanatory. I got my yogurt as well. And then I got some of these cottage cheese. These were on sale, so 4 of them for $5. And the only thing is the sodium in cottage cheese a little higher, but who cares about sodium being high? So, looking at Simply Potatoes. So when you're dieting, this is actually a really good substitute for a good carb source, just because the macros are really on point per serving. 78 grams, 16 grams of carb, 1 gram of protein, 0 grams of fat, and dietary fiber as well, 2 grams. So when you weigh this out, 78 grams, it's really a pretty good serving. So I'm actually gonna eat that today. And then of course, this is definitely a good way to get some fiber as well. These Carb Balance Mission tortillas. They actually have other ones that are smaller that aren't as heavy with the carbs. So, but you get 13 grams of fiber per tortilla. So these are pretty decent. But as my macros get lower, I'm going to get the smaller tortillas, and it still has about like 9 grams of fiber for the smaller ones, and I think they're about like 13 grams of carbs total. So of course I got my fruits and my veggies as well. I tend to not get as much produce, vegetables during the week, just because they go bad relatively quick. It really sucks. So that's just something to think about too, is I almost have to split up some of my grocery days throughout the course of the week, just so that my produce stays relatively fresh. And of course, I got some hormel chili, so I've done some research. I usually go with this brand, or there's like another brand, but the macros on this is relatively decent. I'll probably just have a half a serving versus a full serving like when I was building. So thinking about that, it's just 14 grams of carb if I did half a serving, and roughly 8.5 grams of protein and 1.5 grams of fat. So when you weigh this out though, honestly, like, it's a good decent amount when you do things. So this is just the grocery haul for the week, and of course I'll probably end up going to the store again if I need some to refuel with my veggies. So if there's any other things that I'm running low on here. But if there's any comments or questions, by all means let me know. But people think that just because you're flexible dieting or if it fits your macros that we get a bad rap for you never eat any whole foods, you're just eating Pop-Tarts and cereal and whatever the heck else people think that we're just eating. But for me personally, I like satiety, and the beauty thing about flexible dieting is that you're choosing the foods that you're basically choosing the foods that you're looking to fulfill those macros. And of course, if you want to stay relatively full, whole foods is a good approach just because of you get a lot more volume in the mix if you know how to do it right. So if there's any questions, by all means let me know in the comments, but thanks for checking in.